Assalamu alaikum students. Today we will start our chapter number 11, which is related to the theorems about parallelograms and triangles. So our theorem number 1 of 11 chapter is this. We will read the statement that in a parallelogram opposite sides are congruent, opposite angles are congruent, the diagonals bisect each other. Here we have the diagram. We have to draw the diagram like this. Like this is the side AB, then BC, then CD, and then AD. This is a parallelogram. We will bisect the diagonals, diagonal 1 and then diagonal 2. This is our center point, O point. Okay, now in a parallelogram, this is our given statement that we have a parallelogram. So this is our given statement, and these 3 points we have to prove these 3 points. So let's start solving it. Today is 23rd June, Tuesday. We are doing our theorem 11.1.1. In 11.1.1 it is given that we have a parallelogram. So first we have to draw a parallelogram whose sides is A, B, C and D. We will bisect our diagonal opposite vertices, A with C and B with D. This is our side AB and CD, and this is our AD and this is our CB side. Now let's talk about the given statement. As I have told you that in the given statement it is given that in a parallelogram, from this we come to know that we have a parallelogram. So in a parallelogram, AB side is parallel to DC side. How we come to know about this, that AB side is parallel to DC side and AD side is parallel to BC side, because this is the property of a parallelogram that whenever we have a parallelogram, the opposite side should be parallel. So this is the known property of a parallelogram. Whenever we have a parallelogram, the opposite sides are parallel to each other. Okay, in our book there is written that in a quadrilateral, we can also write in a quadrilateral, or we can also write in a parallelogram, because parallelogram is the type of a quadrilateral. So now in a parallelogram, AB is parallel to DC and AD is parallel to BC. Now the diagonals, which are the diagonals? This AC is the diagonal and BD is the diagonal. So we will write, and the diagonals BC not BC, AC and BD meets each other at point O. So this is the given statement. This is also the diagonals AB, AC and BD meets each other at point O. This is the property of a parallelogram, that the diagonals bisect each other and meets at some point. So we have named it as O. This is the given property of a parallelogram. So now this is the given statement, that in a parallelogram, AB is parallel to DC and AD is parallel to BC. Now and the diagonals AC and BD meets each other or bisects each other at point O. So this is the given statement. Now we will talk about the proof statement. We have to prove that in part 1, when I was reading in the statement, it is given in part 1 that we have to prove that opposite sides are congruent. So opposite side is AB and DC, so we will write that at the first we have to prove that AB is congruent to DC or CD, and the other side is AD is congruent to BC. So these are the points we have to prove, that AB is congruent to CD and AD is congruent to BC. So the opposite sides are congruent, we have to prove it. Then at the second point it is given that we have to prove the opposite angles are congruent. So what are the opposite angles? These are the opposite angles. A is opposite to C and B is opposite to D. So these are the opposite angles. We will write as DAB is congruent to DCB. This point we have to prove, and we will write ABC is congruent angle. We will write the symbol of angle, and we will write this. This symbol is for the side and this is symbol for the angle. Now ABC is congruent to ADC. These points we have to prove. At the third point we have to prove that the diagonals bisects each other. That means if we will prove that, we have to prove that the diagonals bisect each other at some point. So if we will prove that this point is congruent to this point and this point is congruent to this point, all the points are congruent, so we will say that all the lines are bisecting each other at some point, at a common point. So that's why I will take OA is, we have to prove that OA is congruent to OC and OB is congruent to OD. So these points we have to prove. These are our proof statements. We have to prove them. Now we will talk about our construction points. In our construction, we will name the angles. Like here I'm going to name it as 1 and 2. Here I am going to name it as 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Here I am going to name it as 5 and 6. So in construction I have named the angles. So in construction we will write in the figure, we will label the angles as angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, angle 4, angle 5 and angle 6. So this is our construction statement. Now we will move towards our proof statements and reasons. Okay, when you are practicing or when you are understanding about the proof statements and reasons, focus on the diagram, because all the points are can be seen from the diagram. So see the diagram along with proof statements. Now proof statements and reasons. Now we will talk about the proof statements and reasons. In the first, I am comparing triangle ABD with triangle CDB. I am comparing ABD with CDB. So this is A, B and D. This is the triangle I am taking at first, and I am comparing this triangle with this C, D and B with this triangle. So in these triangles, if 4 is congruent to angle 1. Why? Because these are the alternate angles. So we will write angle 4 is congruent to angle 1, and the reason will be alternate angles. Now I will write BD is congruent to BD. This is the common point. If you can see in the diagram, in both of the triangles BD is common. So I can write BD is congruent to BD because they are common. Now angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. The same reason, alternate angles. So 2 and 3 are also alternate angles. You can see it in the diagram. 2 and 3 are the alternate angles. So now I have taken one angle, one side and one angle. So our triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CDB, and the postulate will be angle side angle, because I have taken one angle then side and then angle. So angle side angle postulate is proved here. Angle side angle. So now it is a known term that if the two triangles are congruent, then we can take any angle and any side of the triangle congruent, because the reason is this, that the corresponding angles are congruent to the congruent triangles, and the corresponding angles of a congruent triangles are also congruent. So that's why we can take any angle and any side of the triangle. So I am using here AB is congruent to DC, the statement which we have to prove in the first point, and AD is congruent to BC. So this is the points I have used from these two triangles, and this is the points we have to prove also. So I am using these points, and it is the reason will be corresponding sides of a congruent triangles. So this is the reason of these points. Now if we talk about the angle, we can also say that angle A is congruent to angle C. Angle A is congruent to angle C because we have these because these two triangles are congruent to each other, so we can take any angle. So if we can say that angle A is congruent to angle C because they both are the congruent triangle, so we can take any angle of these two triangles. So I am saying that angle A is congruent to angle C. The reason will be the same, corresponding angles of a congruent triangle. The reason for this point is also that the corresponding angles of a congruent triangle, and here we are using the reason corresponding sides of a congruent triangle. Now move towards further steps. Remember this point, because till here we have proved our first point. This point will be used in the next part of the theorem. So I will write this step again. Now we will move towards further step. I have told you that I will repeat this step again to you. Angle A is congruent to angle C. The reason was corresponding angles of a congruent triangles. Not of R, we will not write of R. Okay, now we will move towards further step. Angle A is congruent to angle C. Since now I have already proved it, we have already proved it that angle 1 is congruent to angle 4. Why? Because angle 1 and angle 4 are the alternate angles. We will write it like here so that we can write the reason properly. We have already proved it, so there is no need to write again and again the reason that they are the alternate angles. You can write here they are the alternate angles, but we have already proved it, so write just proved. We have already proved. And angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. This is also proved earlier. So if I will add angle 1 and angle 2, and this will be equal when we add angle 4 and angle 3. So if you see in the diagram, angle 1 and angle 2 will form D, and angle 3 and angle 4 will form B. So can we write in place of 1 and 2 angle AD and C, and in place of 4 and 3 angle AB and C. So from there it is proved that angle ADC is congruent to angle AB and C. We will name it as 1 and 2, and we will write the reason here by adding equation 1 and 2. So that's how we have taken these terms. Okay, we have proved the like angle, measure of angle ADC is congruent to angle ABC. So similarly we can also write BAD is congruent to angle A, B and C, because we have taken these angles and we have proved that ADC is congruent to ABC, because alternate angle, when we add the alternate angles, they will make the whole angle. So similarly we can, if we are taking these sides, we can also use these sides. So we can say that angle BAD is also congruent to angle ABC. BAD and BAD and A, B and C. So these angles are also congruent. So it's proved here. The second point is proved here. Now we will talk about our third point, in which we have to prove the diagonals. So we want to take the diagonals. So we will take the triangles which are forming the diagonals BOC and DOA. We will take this triangle and this triangle BOC and AOD. So we will compare triangle BOC with triangle DOA. In these triangles, BC is congruent to AD. We have already proved it in first part. So angle 5 is congruent to angle 6. The reason is this: they are the vertical angles. Angle 5 and angle 6 are the vertical angles. 2 and 3, 1 and 4 are the alternate angles, and angle 6 and angle 5 are the vertical angles. So angle 3 is congruent to angle 2, because if you can see here we have angle 3 and here we have angle 2. It's already proved that they are congruent. We will write angle 1 and angle 4, because in AOD we have angle 1 and in triangle BOC we have 4. So we will write angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Now this point is already proved here. So now triangle BOC is congruent to triangle DOA. So we will make them the triangles congruent. So if the triangles are congruent, then every side are congruent. So if the two triangles are congruent, then this side is congruent to this side is congruent to this side, and this side is congruent to this side. So we will write it as OC is congruent to OA and OB is congruent to OD. The reason for this congruent triangles is the AAS postulate, because we have used two angles and one side, so it will be AAS postulate. And the reason for these are, they are the corresponding sides of a congruent triangle. So this is the whole theorem 11.1.1. Hope you have understand it. These are very easy and simple. You just have to focus on the diagram and on the properties of a parallelogram. Okay, thank you. Allah Hafiz.